Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It is our privilege to meet today with one of our Houston legends, Dr. Richard Tapia, who I've known for many, many decades. He is a mathematician, a professor at Rice University, and among all of his many accomplishments, it is the many, many, many people, thousands of young people that he has touched throughout his career. Dr. Tapia, thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've done so much. You have spanned a career of over 50 years as a mathematician, professor. And it's not something that you see very many Mexican Americans do.
No, but we're seeing more, okay? And I want to serve as a role model to see, look, I grew up as Mexican American, born in the United States, and I didn't go to special schools or have special things. I went from a weak high school to community college to UCLA and into the professorate. So I paid my dues. I mean, I went through maybe the back way, but I got there. But what always carried me was the belief that I can. Sí se puede.
Yes.
And the fact that I knew I had math talent. Okay? It didn't matter what anybody said. I could see that I did have that. Okay, so one step. And my mother was not educated. She came from Mexico at the age of 12 with no parents. And she would say to me, one step at a time will get you to a great place. If you go one step at a time along the rainbow path, at the end there'll be a pot of gold. And I used to say, Mom, that's so naive. But she was right.
Yes.
She was right.
Yes.
And so I just kept going. I didn't know what direction, but one step, okay? And education. My mother came from Mexico believing that education could take you wherever you wanted to go. And so I have a brother who went to Yale who has a law degree. I have a sister who went to UCLA and then USC. She has a law degree. So whatever it was that my mother brought from Mexico, okay, was this belief in education. She came here in the desire to be educated. But when she came alone, and the uncle she lived with didn't believe in education for women. So he said, you have to go clean houses, okay? And so my mother was never able to get the education that she came to the United States for, okay? But she sure believed it, and she sure taught it to us children, okay? So all her children have degrees. There was 5 of us, okay? And so it was not a direct thing. I mean, she didn't beat us over the head. She just made us slowly think that going forward in education was going to be a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a lot of guidance in school. I didn't have counselors pick me up and tell me. I just had to believe in myself, and my mother taught me that belief, okay? And so, even though I grew up as a humble, Mexican American, okay? I grew up in the 60s, so I can use the word Chicano because that's what I grew up. I grew up in the movement of and it made me proud. It made me very proud. And so inside, en el fondo del corazón, okay, I believed and I knew that I could, and that was enough to take me to all these unusual places, okay?
Yes.
Beautiful places.
And along the way, though, you must have seen professors that looked like you, or did you not see them?
No. In fact, I had one professor at UCLA.
Yes.
His name was David Sanchez, okay? And he was not only the only Mexican American, he was the only minority. I mean, there were no blacks, okay? So the answer to your point was, no, I didn't really. I had colleagues. There's an organization called SACNAS, Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. 1972, we started it. And I met other people like me who were just starting as professors or in other areas. And we bonded. I mean, J.V. Martinez, Rodrigo Bañuelos, all these. we bonded in 1972 like we were brothers, okay? Now, the interesting thing is, people are going to say, what about women? In those days, there were no women. There were no women. When I started teaching at Rice, it was 10% women, okay? So SACNAS, on the board, we had no women in 1972. So it wasn't that we excluded them. But I have today, if I think of familia, there's going to be a lot of people that I love who I met as we grew up together as Mexican-American professors, okay?
Yes.
We all grew up together, okay?
Yes.
So I didn't have one person I'd say, oh, look at that model, okay? But we were a group.
Yes.
We were a beautiful group.
Yes.
And so, around my heart, okay, alrededor del corazón, yo soy mexicano, pero en el centro del corazón, soy chicano.
And going back to your mother, what an honor that her son was the first Hispanic elected to the National Academy of Engineering, and in 1996 that President Clinton appointed you to the National Science Board.
Yes.
Unheard of.
Yes. But those two are great achievements, and I love that. I do love being recognized, okay? I enjoy talking to wonderful people like you, okay? But my biggest honor is winning the National Medal of Science. The National Medal of Science is the highest honor given by the United States government to a scientist or engineer. And I won that in 2011, and I received the award from President Obama, okay? Only Latino, not the first. I mean, yes, the first, but only. There have been no Latinos winning that award. And I want to be the role model to say, look, we can do it. That's what I want to see. So if I've been anything, it's a role model to say, yes, you can. Si se puede. And it was, of course, it was beautiful and wonderful being in the White House receiving the award. When President Obama was coming out, a voice said, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, okay? And then you hear the music, Hail to the Chief, and President Obama came out. Now, if you grew up in this country, it's going to put goosebumps on your arms. How can it not, okay?
Yes.
And so it was a great moment. It's a great moment. I cherish it, and I want it to serve not just for me, I want it to serve for us, la gente, okay?
Yes.
And my son, my daughter, and my wife were there. And my wife is New Yorican, okay, Puerto Rican from New York, okay? And she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and myasthenia gravis in the 70s. So she was in a wheelchair at the White House. And she was in the front row. And when they announced my name, she just cheered and cheered, okay? And President Obama looked at me and he said, is that your wife? And I said, yes, that is my wife, okay? And the rapport was really good, okay? And then she spoke to him, and she's not shy. I mean, Puerto Ricans are not shy, okay? Right. And anyway, yes, it is an outstanding memory, and it gives me, my credentials introduce me. I give talks at places like MIT and Stanford and Caltech, and my credentials precede me. I mean, they say this, well, look, Tapia cannot be a total turkey because look at the awards he's won, okay? And so I've given presidential lectures at universities. I've given commencement addresses. I gave a commencement address at UCLA. And so my credentials precede me. And how many times do I have some high school student come up to me and say, I read about you. Our teacher told us about you. Yes. And that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to proudly say, yes, we can do it. And that's what I'm doing. And so I am a product of this country. I'm a product of Los Angeles, okay, with parents from Mexico. And there are a lot of us like that, okay? Yes. And it makes me very proud to be a member of the heritage, Mexican heritage, plus an American.
Yes.
I mean, I am a product of the United States. I'm not a product of Mexico. I'm a product of the United States. But I have the heritage that I'm proud of together.
Well, and we're proud of you. And you've kind of alluded to it, but specifically, what would you like your legacy to be?
My legacy, that excellence, one of excellence and caring. So in other words, I worked with the community, I worked with students. For example, at universities, we direct PhD students. So in other words, you know, you get to be the advisor. I've had 16 women PhD students in my career at Rice. So 16 women in mathematics. I don't think anybody can match that. I've had 16 underrepresented minorities. Okay, I don't think anybody can match it. So I want my legacy to be quality, that I was a good mathematician and a caring person, and that I served as not only talking the talk, but walking the talk, that I did that. So I get back at night and I start to think, because I lost my wife 10 months ago, okay? My wife of 63 years. So at night I just think about things, and I think about her, and I think about us, and I think that, and I say, I've been traveled a long way. I've been, you know, over many bridges, okay, and under many bridges, and I feel good. I'm happy. And as I started to work with students, in particular, let's say, Latino students, I would say, I've been there.
Yes.
I know where you are. I know where you're going. I've been there. I can help you. And they immediately look at me and they say, you are like me, okay? I've been talking to other professors, but they don't understand me, and they don't know who I am, okay? But you know who I am because you are one of us, okay? So I'm mellow on those things, okay? There's been some really sad things in my life, but there's also been some great things, okay? Perhaps the saddest thing, see, when my wife died, she was 81 years old, so I mean, she lived a full life. But 40 years ago, I had a 21-year-old daughter. Her name was Cersei, and she was killed in an automobile accident. She was a student at Rice at the time, and that comes back every day, every day. So when you lose a child, you lose a part of your future. When you lose your parents, you lose a part of the past. So every day I have to, one way or another, even if I'm not trying to, Cersei, my late daughter, comes into my memories, okay? And my wife does too. But with my wife, she lived a full life. She taught dance, she did a lot of things. So I reckon with myself and say, there's a lot to be happy for.
Yes.
And the country offers a lot. And there's a lot of wonderful people. There are wonderful people in my profession. You know, I could say to you, oh, it's been so difficult and people weren't nice to me. But that's not true. That's not true. People supported me and helped me. When I was young, senior mathematicians would watch for me. Okay? Sure, I had the neighbors and other people saying, oh, you're second class because you're Mexican American. But it's been a good world.
Yes.
It's been a good, good world.
Well, and you've been good to this world. So for that and so much more, Dr. Tapia, we want to thank you and congratulate you on being a Houston legend. I'm Dr. Laura Murillo. I had the great privilege to sit and visit with Jesus Terrones, who's an energy executive here in Houston. He told us a lot about his beautiful story, his humble beginnings, which ultimately led him to become a West Point and Harvard graduate. We hope you enjoy the show. Janie, educator, she taught at your school, was dean at Austin High School in the East End where you grew up.
Yep.
You met her when you were in the 8th grade?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we used to do migrant farm work, and my dad would take There was a newspaper they give in the fiestas, and it's called La Subasta.
Yeah,
and
of course, I remember. It had ads for jobs.
That's exactly right. So the jobs for the summer, he'd always look ahead, and you pay them a certain amount of money, and you take a bus all the way to these labor camps. And this year it was my 7th grade. Actually, I was finishing my 6th grade year, and then we took a bus to South Carolina, and then from there the season took us to Virginia, and then to Florida, and we were at the labor camp there, and we were just trying to come home, and that was a bad season. We didn't have money to come back, and so what we did is we sold everything we got, and we told the Greyhound bus station, we have all this money. How close can you get us to Houston? I mean, we're expecting, I don't know, Beaumont or something, and they said, well, this takes you to Tampa, Florida. So we ended up in the bus station of Tampa, Florida, and nowhere to go, no money in our pockets. And my dad remembered a phone number he had about a gentleman that would give us jobs in Florida, picking oranges. And he called it, and he said, "Hey, get a taxi, tell him to bring you to this town, Wauchula, Florida, and if you come here, we'll give you a job picking oranges." And we said, "Well, that's our only option." So we did it. He gave us jobs, and we just wanted to raise money to come back home, my brother, my dad, and I. And so school started, and so education was very important to my dad always, and to me. And so he made me enroll in the class there, and I was supposed to be going to the 7th grade. I said I was actually going to the 8th grade. I skipped the 7th grade, and I don't know why I did that. Don't ask me why, but I did. But the neat thing is, I was in a Lanier Middle School here in Vanguard, so you're like a year ahead, and so I was over, and I was, during the divorce, I got set back a year, and that was me trying to take matters into my own hands and put me in the right year I belonged. And I worked hard there, and I think when I started 8th grade, I did really well because I was trying to make sure it did, and I would go to these events for the honor roll kids, and there I met her. And so we met in 8th grade. We dated, and then one day my dad said, "Hey, we just need to go back to Houston." Sold everything that Saturday, and 2 hours later we were driving home to Houston. So I never said goodbye, but I always wondered what happened to her. And so 5 years later, I'm at the West Point Prep School, where there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no internet, there's nothing. So you just have to sit in your room and you just reflect on life, and you just think about things you've experienced. And I always wondered what happened to her. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna look her up. So I went to the payphone. Remember the payphones back then? The kids probably don't know.
Yeah.
The 1-800 numbers, and got the phone number to the school, the address, and I wrote a letter to my English teacher, another angel, Al Pace. He and I are friends to this day. And so I said, "Hey, sir, thank you for everything you did." He bought me shoes and T-shirts, and it was pretty bad. I had like 3 jeans for the whole year or whatever. And so he saw that, and no socks, and so he took care of me and bought me clothes. And I thanked him for that. And oh, by the way, this is what I'm doing in my life. I'm at the West Point Prep School, trying to get to West Point the next year. And and actually, so I was trying to get to West Point next year, and then I just asked them, by the way, there's this young lady I'm trying to find, and she is from there. I know she lives in a very small town. Any chance you can give me her address? And so he did. He got me her address, convinced some of his students to get her, and there was some connection between the kids and relatives. And so I wrote her this long letter telling her, "Hey, look, I apologize for what I did. It was beyond my control. This is what I've done since then, and this is where I'm at. This is what I'm trying to do, and I hope to one day see you and talk to you in person." And I put this letter in the mail. There's no email back then, and just wondering what would happen, if there anything would come out of that. And I don't know why I felt the strong urge to do that, and I did. Of course, the man upstairs, now I know why, right? Because 22 years later, we're married with 3 kids. But she received a letter and wrote back, long letter, and we became pen pals. After 6 months, we exchanged pictures.
So no phone call? Is this all
letters?
All letters. Do you have the letters?
No.
Oh.
I'm a guy. Guys don't keep that stuff. I wish I did. But I threw them away. And then, when I went to West Point, I brought her up to formals.
Oh.
So we went to West Point formals together as friends, and we just were best friends for like 4 or 5 years, and she became my best friend.
Yes.
And then my last year at West Point, I finally asked her to be my girlfriend. I'm traditional, so you ask, and then we became boyfriend, girlfriend, and 6 months later I proposed after I finished flight school, and we got married.
Wow. Fascinating. So what were some of the things you were doing when you were your daughter's age?
So she's in the 4th grade right now. I was on the weekends, I was mowing yards in Pearland, Texas, cleaning swimming pools, This is during the school year, right? And in the evenings, I'd go help clean offices because the gentleman, the lady that we worked for, that my dad worked for, my dad would always have me with him. And by the way, I didn't get paid, so that's just what I did. And so wherever he was working, he always had me next to him, doing whatever and teaching me to work, really.
What did he teach you? What do you think were your lessons, the biggest lessons you took from your father?
Be prepared. Be prepared for anything. Because things can happen and don't ever let anything keep you down. I mean, we've lived in a car for 3 months. A little Toyota station wagon when we were doing migrant farm work in Idaho, I remember, in the labor camp. We got there and there was no housing left. And so you do what you got to do. You're there to work, so you didn't go there to live in a nice house. You went there to work, so we flipped the back seat of the station wagon, and my brother, my dad, and I slept there for 3 months. And then we'd get up, go do the migrant farm work, and then in the afternoons we'd go back to sleep there, and that's how it was for 3 months. I mean, those kinds of experiences, and obviously you could tell that it was hurting him, right, for us to put us through this, and he would talk to me about that. He would take these tough moments and extract a lesson, a life lesson from that stays with me forever. And when things got tough and anywhere else, I go back to that, and I go back to that advice. And my mom did the same, different experiences that she endured. And even though I didn't grow up with her, I wasn't there for a lot of things, and she wasn't there for a lot of my experiences, but we just talk about it, and she always gave me advice when we talk on the phone and stuff. And I mean, I go on forever. I've learned a lot from. That's the best thing they've given me, their advice, and the way they did it to where a teenager would listen and take in that life. And when you leave the house, and you remember those things, and under different circumstances, different scenarios that you find yourself in.
But it also prepared you for what was West Point, as you mentioned. With all the yelling and screaming and emptying your bags, you had a place to sleep. You had 3 meals.
Yeah. And
all of that prepared you for it.
Yeah. No, and my dad sometimes he'd say, hey, you got to be tough. So I remember he'd wake us up at 2 or 3 in the morning, my brother and me, and he'd make us hit the punching bag that he had inside of our apartment. And he just watched us, and he would teach us how to punch the punching bag, because he said you have to toughen up, because life is going to always be hitting you, and you got to be able to hit back. Yeah. And of course, we hated that moment. We just wanted to go to sleep.
What do you
Dad, it's Wednesday night. I have a test tomorrow. What are we?
No, you're going to get up right now.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, and it was a little bag that I had to retrieve out of a dumpster. He said, hey, that's a great, why did people throw that away? He put masking tape around. Yeah. I mean, your knuckles bled. I mean, that's the kind of guy he was. He's a tough guy. And, but then you go to West Point, and I had to box. You have to do boxing class. I'm like, oh.
This is a new bag.
Well, it helps a little. Yeah, I actually enjoyed it. And so, yeah, my dad was different, but I mean, I learned a lot from him. Yeah. And I wish I could teach my kids some of those things without putting him through what I went through. Because I reflect on those moments, and while I didn't enjoy them as much, I mean, those are the moments that I go back to, like I've told you earlier, when things get tough. And then remind myself, like, wow, I made it through that.
Yes.
And it turns out like that was probably one of the best moments of my life, if you think about it. When
not at the time.
That's right, definitely not at the time. But now you reflect and yeah, you take a lot away from those moments. Culture shock, both positive and negative. Okay. I mean, the negative, because I remember the moment you get there, you get off the bus, they said, yep, they signed, all right, go around that building, and you're going there with your bags, and as you turn around, go around that building, there's these drill sergeants yelling at everybody, making everybody throw everything out of their suitcases and put it back in, and I'm like, what in the world? And I thought, I knew it was going to be tough, but not this quickly.
Yes, immediately.
Immediately.
They showed who was in charge.
Absolutely, and there was no question.
Yeah.
You didn't have time to question it. So that was, but that was part of you expected some of it, just not that quickly. But then the other side is, and it's funny because a lot of my classmates, we keep in touch, and it's not till recently that I tell them this. They say, you were always all into it there, and you were happy. And I'm like, quite frankly, yes, because that was the first time in my life I had 3 guaranteed meals. I had my own bed. I was not the worst dressed kid. We all had the same uniform. Yes. And there was a confidence that comes with that, quite frankly, where, okay,
It was a level
for
the first time.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. And so that felt really nice. And so, I was there to prove myself, because at the prep school, if you prove yourself and you pass your classes, you're automatically into West Point the following year. So very few people get that opportunity. So it was a huge blessing.
One of the stories that stays with me is that throughout this journey, there have always been people, haven't there?
A lot.
Angels, as you referred to them.
Yes.
So talk about the people who opened up a trailer for you guys, a mobile home for you and your dad.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So we met a family, Tommy Dawson and Glenda Dawson. When I moved with my dad, I was in the third grade, and you know, however my dad met him, you know, he offered him a job, and my dad didn't speak English, he didn't speak Spanish, so I don't know how they communicated, but my dad believed that he had offered him a job, so let's go check. So we would drive to Pearland and met the family, and sure enough, they gave him a job, and I was in fourth grade, and until after I finished college, my dad would mow their lawn, do whatever needed, maintain their house, mow the lawn, clean out the swimming pool, paint the garage, do maintenance, and they had rental properties. My dad would go fix. You know, my dad he's a great worker. I mean, he's really good with his hands. He can do, he's amazing. You learn a lot from that too. And so, anyway, so yeah, they took us in, and we'd go clean their office, like I said, and when things got tough for us, they would bring us into their house, and we lived there. In their backyard, they had a little trailer, and they said, you guys can live in there anytime. And they bought us groceries. We didn't have to pay rent. I mean, they did a lot. And then the biggest thing that when I mentioned this West Point thing and going to college, they encouraged me big time. And when things got tough, and it's just interesting the way it happened. There were times when we had eviction notices from our apartments, and my dad and I are there, and all of a sudden there's a knock at the door, like, well, who's that? You open the door, and it was Tommy Dawson. Almost like, as I reflect, you know, you have, it happens a certain way, but you remember them a certain way, almost like light beaming all around him. I see his silhouette. That's exactly it. Yes. That's why I call them angels, because that's honestly how I remember them, and the feeling that that overcomes me is. But he'd come in and say, hey, how's it going? What are you guys doing? And then and don't lie to me. That's what he would say. And don't lie to me. Have you paid the rent? And my dad would kind of be embarrassed, and he'd look at me, has baby paid the rent? And I would just shake my head. And then he would take money and give us money to pay the rent. And then he you know, buys groceries. He says, you have groceries? Don't make me go open the cabinets. And I just not know. He gave us money for groceries. And then we didn't have a car. And how do we get to Pearland to mow lawns from Telephone Road on 45? He'd come pick us up, take us to his house. And then he'd come back and drop us off.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, those kinds of things, right? So some of the neatest moments too I remember is when I was at West Point, and I'd come back, and I'd love to be there early morning before they woke up, and then when they came out, they saw me cleaning their swimming pool still. As a senior at West Point, I'd come back and still do that.
And so now you are an executive in a very competitive space. You've traveled the globe. Share with us what that has done for you and your family, how that's changed the way you view life.
The thing that jumps out the most is when I was reading, my son's applying to college now, so I read his essay, and in his essay he says how he's visited 15 countries and multiple continents, and talks about the blessings he's had, and then right before he talks about, you know, he recognizes what his parents have gone through, and he's trying to kind of build on that momentum, right? But when he says that, I enjoy that because it seems like we made this world smaller for him, less complicated to some extent, so that he can say he's been there. He's been to the Great Wall of China, been to Italy, to Rome. He's been to Singapore, the Middle East, Dubai, all that stuff, and all of it, a lot of it from work, a lot of it just, you know, I also wanted to take him to Thailand. And so I think that's, we just talk, and we talk about valuing those experiences.
Talk to us about success and how you have dealt with success.
My faith is a big deal to me. I've always stayed true as the best I can. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but I remember the moments I don't forget when I was a kid praying for things to get better, to be able to get accepted to West Point, to be able to go do this, go do that. To this day, I still do that, even when I drive to work. And so it's my faith that has allowed me to do that and maintain that humility.
Well, I want to thank you for spending time with us today, sharing your story of inspiration, hope, and how proud we are that you are doing all the great things that you're doing, and this that you're really in many ways the only beginning now as you embark on you know, so many other opportunities and seeing your children take their next steps, and all along the way, as you said, your faith your family, your wife have led you to where you are today. So
Yes.
we are just extraordinarily proud of you, and we're thankful that you shared your story with us.
No, thank you guys for the time and for this. And I enjoy keeping up with what your accomplishments are as well, enjoying your book and everything. So thank you so much for everything you do for our community
Thank
too.
you. Well, I think we all have much to be grateful for.